Hello, hello. We're doing this.
Yes, we are.
Hallelujah. Okay, I gotta ask, are those skateboards on the wall behind you?
Yes, they are.
Oh, awesome, except no wheels.
They're just boards you hang up. I bought them for memorabilia. I actually have a skateboard that I actually skateboard on.
Like a real skateboard. Okay.
Not very often any longer these days. It's kind of it's a little hard on the hips and joints and whatnot. But
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
oh, my pleasure.
How's
Exciting.
it exciting?
Yeah.
Okay, you have to tell me why.
I've never done one before, so something new, something different.
Okay.
Don't know what you're going to ask, so that's kind of exciting. It's always
A
interesting to
mystery.
have new conversations about stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Perfect. Um, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Somebody who's excited about it and new conversation. Um, there's the starting point of this is always I have one scripted question that I ask people, and then it like everything goes out from there, it seems
Okay.
like. And that is, how did you get started doing leadership, either in the technology world or, if you were like a shift lead in a restaurant or something?
Yeah. There's kind of two parts to it, I would say. I was one of the kids, so going back to skateboarding briefly, um, I would always want to be building ramps. And so building stuff to go skateboard on. And so I was always the person scrapping stuff together and going out and building stuff and getting people fired up to do that. So as a kid, that was sort of a natural
Mm,
thing. Like I built a couple fairly big half pipes. And just sort of always that's kind of my nature, wanting to build something and quite often wanting to build something maybe that needed some help on. Kind of kicked off. And then I was an individual contributor for a long while. I did a little bit of management training in my first like maybe 7 or 8 years, and it was at a company where it was much more focused on like turning engineers into managers without any training. So it was kind of hard. And they kind of expected you to be still an individual contributor and yet manage people. And that didn't really sit very well with me. And so I went back to being mostly an individual contributor, architect. And then really what struck me one day is I was just typing in, and I did a lot of C++ code. And I think I
mm,
was just typing in the same thing that felt like I had typed in 100 times before. And I'm like, you know what, I got to get out ahead of this. Like being an individual contributor on this and typing in the same thing over and over again feels silly. Like I'm kind of tired of doing that. I want to get out ahead of it so that I'm the person telling people to type in the silly stuff instead of typing in the silly stuff.
right,
That's where
right.
I really transitioned from being an individual contributor to really management and leading. And not really like managing wasn't really I wanted to do is manage people necessarily, but lead and get out ahead of stuff so that I was working on more interesting things than what I was being told to work on or kind of given the opportunity. So that's
Right.
really what kicked off me for leadership.
Interesting. I love that you recognize there's a part of this from skateboarding, from trying to get people to build ramps. I think that's awesome. Um, Someday, if you ever decide to write a book, you should include that as part of it. Um, I'm kind of my head is I'm stuck in the like the ramp building and like half pipe. And what are the what are the things that, like, patterns that you recognize between getting people to help you build a ramp and building software?
I think some of it is recognizing there's a need, but for me, it's really frustrating when progress isn't made or there's indecision. And so, oh, should we do this or that? And right, a lot of times, if you're not actually actively doing stuff, it's very easy to get stuck in analysis paralysis. And so,
Yeah.
to me, it's important to start moving on stuff. And so that's where you kind of naturally kicks in. Okay, what can we do to solve this? How do we move forward? What can we
Right.
start building? Whether it's building a ramp quickly and finding wood and whatnot, or even with software, it's just, okay, we want to have this thing. Okay, how do we get started on it? Where do we do this stuff? All right, we need someone to do this and someone to do that, right? And I don't think everyone's suited for that decision making or even thinks about it that way. Like they're thinking, okay, I want to work on this one thing and I want to get it done. but they're not sort of, but they're kind of stewing on, oh, who does this and who does that? I don't know. To me, it feels like focusing on trying to get something done is the important part, and that's what sort of creates leadership, or recognizing a gap and going, okay, we need to go that way. And everyone's kind of generally walking that direction, but really slowly. Like it's also like organizing people to go out, get a drink or go to dinner, right? There's people, oh,
Hmm.
we want to do something, and then, but just vague decisions on it are super frustrating. All right, let's go here. Right? If people don't like it, okay, offer up something else, but at least setting a direction gives focus, and
Right.
then can enable movement.
I like that. And I really like that stuff that you learned like in the skateboarding world. Like I always think that that's awesome when people have uh lessons from their childhood that propagate forward into professional environments. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very do-it-yourself culture, right? No one is setting up, no one's making a ramp for you. I mean, now there are I mean, there were skate parks in the 70s, but when I grew up, like skateboarding had sort of died off. And so you had to make your own scene, right? I made my first thing I ever made is kind of funny. I'm thinking about it. I made a little bank that we lived in Wyoming, and I put it out in the driveway. And one day it was gone, and I realized the garbage men took it away because they thought it was garbage. And it was not a good ramp. So that was my first user feedback or
Right.
feedback on what I had done.
Oh my God, that's too funny. Well, but the good news is that you had your first experience and then you built another one and
Yeah.
and you kept doing it and you didn't stop. So that's awesome. Um, how big are the teams that you're running now?
My team right now is about 20 people, 20 engineers.
Nice. Very good. And how do you divvy them up?
Right now, it's by kind of speciality, which I don't particularly like. We have, front end mobile engineers. We focus most of our stuff is right now Unity. We've got back end engineers that work on both the server side and also sort of like admin tools, which are a cross between server stuff and HTML5, kind of that. I would
Mhm.
prefer just, everyone full stack. It still feels like that's kind of an old school methodology, but I don't like it because it's very hard to divvy up work sometimes. Because then I have that or team structure, and then separate from that, sort of orthogonal to that is like sort of an agile scrum pod structure, right? Where you've got engineers grouped with QA, grouped with other people. And so it's sort of a matrix
Right.
orientation. But when you have specialities, it's like, well, every team has to have one UI guy, it has to have a server guy, it has a tools guy, but not every job breaks up nicely. It's like for this team, for this sprint or upcoming chunk of work, that's all UI work. Well, okay, we got two guys that aren't UI work. What are we going to do with them? And then
Right.
you end up bifurcating the work in weird ways. So I've been working on trying to get away from that. Even the last job too is very focused on very regimented. Oh, I do this stack, and someone else does this stack, and someone does this stack. I'm just like, that's a lot to keep track of. Like, it's code, and even now today with the generative AI tools, man, you can't say like I can't write C sharp or I can't write PHP or I can't write HTML. It's like you can ask it to get pretty far with with
Right. Right.
generating that code as long as you know how to debug it and step through it and reason about it. You can write pretty much anything you want.
Okay, so now you're taking me on a total tangent thing. So you're talking about AI writing code. Um, how good is the code and how often, well, first of all, how good is the code that's coming out of it?
I think when you start off like fresh stuff, it's really amazing. Like if you're doing greenfield stuff, there's stuff I do personally too. Claude Code. I wrote a whole little game in with Claude Code, and I guess that's Anthropic's tool. I wrote like maybe 10 lines of code in it. It's probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 thousand lines of code. It is all done by it. And just like, hey, refactor this into this, write unit tests for this. It's pretty good code. Now it's so dense, it's potentially like if I had to go fix stuff, that would be more interesting. Like I don't see, I currently don't have the sense of how it scales when you have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of lines of code. Like our current also like the code base I work in professionally is hundreds of thousands and millions of lines of code. It does okay, but it's quite often falls over. You have to ask it stuff multiple times, or you may ask it for a big change and then realize, nope, that's too big. I got to keep scaling it down. But in general, unless I think you're writing like crazy, like compression algorithms or stuff like that, it does a pretty good job of figuring stuff out. I would say, 60 to 70% of it is, keepable and maintainable. You can read it and get comments out of it as well. But it still is when you have, and we have an older code base, that some wacky stuff in it where, trying to detangle two classes, it it struggles. Like it ends up making it slightly better in some ways and worse in others. So I think
Mm,
it's much better when you have a green field, like you're prototyping an idea out, or if you do have a really good modular code base and you can say, hey, I'm working on these 10 files. I think they're really good. When you have a, million line code base with a lot of interdependencies, it's tough. And if you don't have unit tests, it's really hard to know that you didn't break something too, right? Even if you're
mm.
so, and we don't have a lot of good unit tests. So I think there are some preconditions for it to be much more successful.
Right, right. Would you consider using it to like rebuild everything from scratch?
That would be really fun to try. I think that's hard to get the business buy-in,
Right,
but I
right.
think it would be really interesting, especially if you start with a good modular, you know, foundation. You had the right basic architecture. I think it would be pretty amazing. Or if you could go with so far, my experience with microservices hasn't been super great, but if you really knew what you were doing and had some good experience yourself, or your leaders had good experience with how to break up at least a backend in microservices, I think you could put together a pretty good system with good, unit testing, code coverage, things like that, pretty darn quickly.
Okay. Um, how do your teams feel about this?
It's kind of all over the place. There's some people that are really excited about it, that use it all the time and are really kind of amazed. And other people are like, well, it completed a line, it was okay. And I've had a few people that just didn't use it, like just
Mm,
not at all. And so it's definitely a mixed bag. And I think people are still now the one thing is we use Unity on the front end, and a lot of that has that's harder. The code it generates and how it interacts with Unity's runtime so far has been kind of tough to figure out if it does a good job with it. It's much better if you're building UIs with something like HTML or something like React, where it's a more declarative code base model, whereas
hmm.
Unity's underlying storage of the scene graph is I don't think is easy for some of those tools to generate, at least right now. So,
Okay.
but I think in general, it surprises people. There are people that are like, it's not that great. And then, there's something that clicks and it's amazing. And then, a day later, it does something silly and it doesn't work because it does hallucinate. Sometimes it'll create, hey, yeah, call this API. It's like, well, I would love to call it API if it existed.
Yeah.
Now I just need you to implement that API that seems intractable.
Okay, that's pretty funny. Yeah, the whole hallucinating thing, in like not just your context, but everything else that I every time I hear another hallucination story, I have to laugh. Like
Yeah.
there is some underlying fundamental flaw in in how those things are being programmed that allows them to hallucinate like that.
Well, I
Um,
mean, remember, like a lot of the LLMs are based on, generation of a sequence of words and what is the statistical next word that can happen. So they're
yeah,
not facts, right? I mean, I think they're probably augmenting them with factual information so that they're grounded. But if you're just like, hey, I'd like to call this API, like if someone wrote a really influential blog post that made up a bunch of APIs, like the LLM might choose those, right? Depending on
right, right.
like the temperature it's running at. Like it's just like, well, I don't really know if it's true. They've added a lot of things to ground them, but yeah, I was trying to do something with Google's Gemini, trying to deploy something to the cloud, and it kept giving me command line parameters to some tool that didn't exist. I couldn't even find anywhere. And I'm like, man, I wish these existed because this parameter would be perfect. But it wasn't real.
It's taking its information from fiction
Yeah.
and stuff that it's seen on the screen of movies where Hollywood thought this was like the Matrix, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's not really what's happening on.
Something like that, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it's funny. Oh my god. Um, that's do any random. Do any of the people on your team skateboard?
No, no, I don't think so. It's
Just
very rare
you?
for me to run into a skateboarder, especially in technology. That's not something
Okay.
that I find very often. I know we're a game company, so you've got some interesting people, but I think I'm the only skateboarder.
Okay. Yeah. I one of my kids got really into skateboarding a few years ago. It was kind of a phase, and so
Yeah.
we were going to this skate park, and I was amazed at how many parents were skateboarding, and like they actually knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
I
Saturday,
don't.
like I haven't, like I said, I hadn't gone back in a long while. I had some injuries, and so I'd stepped away from it for a couple of years. And I went back on Saturday morning seems to be the old person time to go skateboarding. And so there are a bunch of people, yeah, in their 40s and 50s out there. It's also great when I grew up, you didn't see women skateboarding, and now you see young women, older women. Like it's just amazing to see the diversity of
Yeah.
people skateboarding. Yeah, parents out there, enthusiastically cheering on their kids. I That was not like you did skateboarding to be not cheered on.
Yeah.
You did
I'm sorry, but the world has
skateboarding
changed.
in opposition to your parents' desire.
Right. You're not a revolutionary anymore. Now you're mainstream. I hate to tell you that.
Yeah,
You know, Tony Hawk ruined it for everybody.
yeah, yeah. One of those skateboards on the wall is a Tony Hawk. I was watching their podcast for a while. Him and Jason Ellis had a podcast, and I was like, you know what? I'll support those guys because I've enjoyed some of their things. So that's what those skateboards are from that podcast.
Okay, okay. Very cool. Very cool. Um, I'm always curious with the way that you've got your teams, and you mentioned this earlier, but like divvying up the tasks and that kind of stuff. Um, and you said you're running agile, and
I wouldn't call like we're trying.
you're trying.
We're trying.
Are that's interesting. So what do you like?
I
Are
mean,
you
we
waterfall?
it's a mixture of the two. I mean, we do have sprints and we try to break things
Okay.
into stories and we do some story planning, and we do refinement and then you do 2 weeks of work, but stuff isn't shippable after 2 weeks. Um, we don't necessarily keep the team structure stable, so it's very hard to get to story pointing or any sort of estimation, based on the entire team
Oh,
because the
interesting.
product owners move around a little bit, and so that makes it harder to kind of lock into a groove, right? Because if you have different people showing up with different stories each time, there isn't really a consistent structure to them.
Right, right.
And then generally, we still struggle with breaking work down into stories that are shippable in a sprint or even close to shippable, right? The stories still sometimes are really microscopic or huge, like, hey, this story is make this feature. It's like, we need to break that down more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, we're still on that path of trying to figure out how to get stuff into pieces that make sense. And I think that's one of the challenges. Obviously, that's a huge challenge on the product side of, they usually envision stuff as this is what we want to get done, right? This is the cool
Sure.
thing our customers are going to see when it's done. It's like, well, okay, that's 3 or 6 months of work. Can we get there 2 weeks at a time, right?
Right, right.
And that's the tough
Yeah,
for them. And then even engineers still struggle with it. Oh, I got to refactor this code. It's going to take me 6 months. Okay, how do we do that 2 weeks at a time, right? What's the thing you can do? Chip off 2 weeks of work behind A/B test or behind a feature flag, and still no, I got to rewrite all this. And sometimes you do. Um, if you're doing a foundational bit that maybe you can't break into a small chunk. But I still think that's still always a struggle with all the teams I've seen is thinking of like, okay, yeah, you want this cool thing. That's 8 months. Do you really think we should spend 8 months in a branch, and 5 people working on it and then integrate it? Like that's going to be a calamity at the end. How do we do
right,
that? We generally ship once a month. Like, how do we do that in 8 increments, right?
right, right,
And the users may not see any of it for a while, but at least it's out there and we can flip it on to our in-house, people that can test it in production. But we can build
right,
confidence in it, and as we make adjustments, we can see it. But generally, we've tended to like, do things in 3 and 6 month increments, and then when they finally do get out in production, It's like, oh, yeah, we didn't think of the scalability thing. We need to make some adjustments. Or when customers actually see it, as opposed to us internal people, it's just like, it's not really, it's not resonating with customers. We need to make art changes or, flow changes or things like that.
I'm really curious. Why do you have teams that are changing around?
It's just, I think there's not a good reason for it, to be honest. Like the product people kind of get reassigned. That's not something under my domain. It's not something I would do, but it's just the product people are relatively inexperienced, and so they get put on something for a little while with the team, and then they move to something else. And for whatever reason, we decided, oh, that person needs to go to work with this different team because now they're available or whatever.
Ah,
It's not been a good reason for it. I think it's more of, I would say, somewhat times a lack of discipline and
right,
sticking to the plan of like, hey, this is the team. They do the work with this product person.
right,
Let's
right.
keep them together. A lot of things come up. Like we're a live ops game, run 24/7. We're
Yep.
always changing things all the time, flipping bits, changing the features of it, trying to find what is going to make our customers excited and happy.
Hmm.
That causes a lot more turbulence, right? To because sometimes it's hard to differentiate between a configuration issue that can be fixed, undoing the config change, or maybe that configuration change triggered a bug in the field that we need to adjust, or maybe players just don't like what we've configured and we have to figure out how to change it. And so that also creates a lot of turbulence and noise that interrupts flow and, unbalances the product people between what they're working on long term and what they're thinking about short term.
Right, right. Yeah, I just was thinking, I just my experience with running teams, I've always had a very stable, um, I've always had, different companies, but it's always been stable team structures. Um,
And most of the team is stable, but the product owners move around, um,
yeah,
and maybe a little bit of QA. So it's not constantly fluid, but I still think with the product owner moving around, that's tough, right? That's
yeah,
because that's the person that sort of is providing the direction to the team.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's a, it's been my experience that the teams get more effective over time
Yeah,
with the product manager because the team gives the product manager feedback about stories and tasks and how they're breaking stuff down and everything else, and so you gain efficiencies. And product owners bouncing, switching teams, unless it's after like 3 years. um
yeah, I
they
agree. My experience has also been similar. It's better to have that stable. It's just we're still working on that part
Okay,
of it.
okay, yeah, huh, yeah, that seems like an easy, the hard part is deciding, okay, you know, product manager A is going to go with team B and product manager B is going to go with team D or whatever, however you're going to divvy that up. And then like,
Yeah,
we're going to stay stable for the next extended amount of time, um, in the name of efficiency, because at least
yeah.
I think about, I mean, for me, I think about team efficiency, um, and, and, and happiness with the process. Like that's what's always running in the back of my head is does this make the team happy and are they being more efficient,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
efficiency is the big one. And
Yeah,
again, we're balancing trying to do longer term things with very fast reactivity. Like
yeah,
just being able to respond to, oh, something's off today. We made a change. All right, jump in and take a look at it. A lot of times engineers don't have to yet, but sometimes, oh, I can't figure out what this is, what happened, and so they get pulled in. But that ends up, I think, also randomizing the product people a lot. And I don't know, not every software company is responding to stuff like, I mean, we make maybe potentially on a day, we might make a half dozen changes to the tuning of the game each day.
wow, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's that's I don't know that I've ever worked on a product that was that volatile. Like I know Amazon does double digit, triple digit
Oh,
experiments.
yeah.
um, but interesting, interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that was surprised me when we've gotten a lot better at it. Like the config changes are effectively changing the code of the game, right? It's data, but it's changing it. They weren't really at the point kind of considered code changes. Like someone would go in and make the change and deploy it, and but it doesn't go through the same vetting cycle, right, as a code change, right? Oh, we wrote a story for some code. We did the work. Okay, we did a code review. All right, we got a build, a QA tested it. Okay, now this is like, hey, I think if we change 3 to 4, the game will be better. Okay, change 3 to 4. Is it better? Oh, it's not. Oh, who changed 3 to 4 yesterday? Oh, I did, and so
Oh my God.
getting the discipline around that has taken some time, but I think we're much better at it now. And that's one of the ones is it wasn't really thought of as the same kind of deployment, and it can't quite be because it needs to be fast, it needs to
Right,
be
right. Yeah,
adaptable, but it needs still enough process to know what did you do? Okay, who's doing what? Um,
yeah, yeah,
and yeah, finding that balance is always tricky.
yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a just a different use case, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I can't imagine. Like, I've never been on something where you ship the server multiple times a day. That to me would be pretty amazing. We're trying to get to like weekly server releases and even faster, but it's also again with the other changes that we're doing so rapidly, the analytics on stuff like it's hard to figure out what's causing what change and what change in behavior, and so you can only change the system so fast and
right,
understand the impact of your changes. So you kind of get mitigated by that. Like we can't tell if this was good or bad, so we got to just let this one sit still for a little while before we make another change.
right, right. Yeah, that's that's interesting because in that volatile an environment, I'm sure there's patterns that pop up. There's stuff that you see, both from the standpoint of the user experience and that stuff, as well as how does your team respond to that volatility.
We're on Slack a lot. Slack and PagerDuty, and we have on-call rotation, so but across all the disciplines, and so yeah, when it's your week, you're sitting there on the Slack channel making sure everything's good. We've got analytics or analysts looking at it too and going, okay, something went off the rails there. We're seeing a strange signal. Let's go dig in, go look at logs. We use Sentry. It's kind of like Datadog. Other similar tools for observability. We've got alerts on everything. We've got anomaly detection. So we've got a lot of things in place to try to catch these, but nevertheless, it still takes right human level observation at times for some of the more subtle things.
Right, right. There's longevity in humans being able to do that because
Yeah.
it's going
Although
to
I
be a
mean
week.
that is a great use case for machines. Like we still need, I think, some time and effort to work on our data so that we have the inputs and the outputs to train things on. But I
Mhm.
do think like but it's one of the more interesting things too. If you did the same experiment with customers 2 days in a row, you're not going to get the same response. Whereas if you're feeding an LLM text, like I can feed it the same book twice, and it's the same book twice, and it should respond relatively similarly. We don't know what our customers are going to do in response to showing them something. Humans don't have to be
Right,
consistent, right? They may be different each day, and something that worked 2 days ago isn't going to work today for whatever reason. So I
right,
still think there's a lot of interesting opportunities there, but it's still a lot of data and a lot of things to figure out. How would you leverage those tools?
right, right. Huh. Um, how it's been a while since I was on pager duty. Like that was, I think, after the third startup, we had a dedicated team for servers, and I didn't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
nice.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Um,
not so bad. I mean, we don't really have that many. We're pretty stable for the amount of stuff we do, but it's still as well as ones that when it clicks off, it's oh no, what happened,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Just
yeah,
knowing you're gonna have to go dig in and try to figure it out, or
yeah,
but yeah, it's a good tool.
yeah. Um, how's your teams with all that stuff, and how do they? Is this just whoever's there is um is responsible, or how do you guys?
Well, like I said, we have on call. So every week we rotate through client and server engineer who's expected to be the first person to jump on stuff. And we have a Slack ID for like you get a at on call. So that sort of signals you. And then if that doesn't work, we'll raise a pager duty. So we cycle through things, but we do have people on the team that are just more prone to jumping in immediately.
Hmm.
We're even trying to train them out of it, but there are people that just love to get in there and get that fixed or really focused on that. And so
Yep, yep.
there are some people that end up being heroes more often than not when that burden should be shared. But I think we did a good job over the years of getting to the point where we've tried to spread that around across all different disciplines. It was kind of not uniformly across all because you really do need product needs to look at it to have an assessment of is this impacting a lot of players, and if we need to make some sort of adjustment or restitution, right? Oh, this happened and player couldn't play for 20 minutes. Let's give them some coins or give them something to, make sure they're
Hmm.
happy. They need to be involved. You need analysts to go help you understand it. So all the disciplines have to participate in that triage. And it's not just engineers or QA.
Right, right. How interesting. That's that's a very cool model. Like it's such a different set of use cases. How many players do you guys have?
Well, I think our
Ballpark.
daily players around 350,000, not huge.
Out of what percentage of your registered users is that?
Yeah, I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah.
I think we're more interested in the daily people that show up. Like the total number of people, I think one of those things that might be considered a vanity metric, right? You can sign up a lot of people and they just are there, they may have installed the app and gotten through the launch screen and never come back. Or
Oh
there's a
yeah,
lot of
that's a good
fraud
point.
too, right? There are a lot of ad networks that simulate the installation of the app and it maybe just get through like to the launch screen and never actually finishes. So
Oh,
we don't really
interesting.
consider installing to be, they need to be engaged.
Right, right. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Yeah, the active user metric is
Yeah.
is what does that come down to? Is that's interesting. Yeah, yeah. Huh. Um, how often or what does your recruiting cycle look like?
It's right now it's more ad hoc. We're as needed. We're not haven't been actively recruiting right now. Um,
Right.
but it's usually, if there's some attrition or some opportunities to grow in different areas. Um, it hasn't been as regular as it's been in some other companies.
What are some things you look for?
I tend to do the old school style of I think you need to do a code interview. Like if someone's going to be an individual contributor, I would expect them to sit at a whiteboard and do something like, whether it's searching a binary tree or, something like that. Like I think that's really interesting to see people walk through those technical problems and not just, maybe about half of it is interviews on their experience, but the other half or an hour or so would generally be coding questions. I
Hmm.
think there's sometimes a balance where we'll do multiple people interviewing. I prefer the one-on-one though. Like I feel like sometimes overwhelming people with like three people peppering questions is, I think, sometimes unfair to them. Uh, but yeah, generally balance that. And we generally make sure we get through, a couple different people on the team, not just one person interviews them, make sure that, someone that might be one of their peers,
Hmm.
a manager. If I'm interviewing for managers, it's more about experience and understanding kind of what their challenges are. And more anecdotal, like, tell me, a situation, what you did, what the outcome is,
Right,
kind of
right.
standard interviewing.
What are some of the things that when you hear that you're like, ooh, I want this one versus I don't want this one?
Um, yeah, it's been a little while. I think from coding one, it's kind of easy. Like people that sort of give up or like, oh, I don't really know this stuff, or I can't remember how to add, an element to a vector. It's like, okay, if you can't remember like the basic syntax of, adding something to an array or a list or whatever, you can't remember those things. That's a red flag. I
Right.
know people get nervous in an interview, but like you should be able to answer questions like that. Would be I was just talking to someone about one of the ones I had. This is a while back, maybe 10 years ago, interviewing people. It was for a title of architect, but to me, an architect is someone that should be able to program. Like they should be writing the higher level pieces of code that, other people kind of fit into. They're not there to draw boxes. I know a lot of times architect analysis in different industries, an architect is the person that draws boxes and then someone actually
Hmm.
turns them into code. But we were looking for architects that could write code, and make plugin systems and modules, and other people expand that. And I started off asking the guy a question about just, how would you mask off bits or something like that? And he's like, I don't remember that anymore. I'm like, okay, this is over. Like I walked him out after 5 minutes.
That's a
That was,
really short interview.
yeah, it was a
Oh my
really short.
God.
And we unfortunately we flew him in. So we flew him in. He stayed in a hotel. He came to the office, had a 5 minute interview, and left.
Wow.
But yeah, he wouldn't move forward on that. From
Well,
management
that's
perspective, it's being able to cover a lot of different things, being able to point out, things you did where you may have recognized a shortcoming, being able to identify those things where you can work on things. To me, it's really having concrete examples, not like abstract things like, oh yeah, if someone did this, I would do this. No, tell me specifically what
sure.
happened.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if time people can't come up with specifics, that to me is one of those ones that's be like, anyone can come up with a hypothetical, but what did you
Right.
really do? And if you didn't have that experience, that's fine too. Just be honest about it.
Right. Right. It's interesting. Um, do you guys have an internal promotion structure?
Yeah, yeah. We have kind of a loosely designed career track, but yeah, people have moved up through it.
Nice.
It's one of those ones that it's a little more informal, I think. And that's been my experience in game companies as well, that not really a lot of hard and fast. Like you'll see people with a very regimented, there's 8 levels, and these are the different career tracks and how you get there. This is more of there are, multiple levels in the company, but it's kind of up to a game team to decide kind of what those mean within the organization. But there's definitely is career growth, kind of looking from, individual contributor knocking out code to someone that's more able to be both a developer or coder and sort of leadership without being a manager, right? To me, that's kind of the individual contributor growth. That's what an architect is to some degree, or a principal is someone that leads people not by managing them, but by, you know, designing things, mentoring, creating systems
Yep.
that other people plug into.
Nice. Do you have formal training for that, or how do you guys make that happen?
No, it's right now very informal. I think we have some like LinkedIn stuff that you can do, but it's really informal for us right now.
Okay. At least, on the bright side, you've got something, which is way better than the people I've talked with that are like, we don't have anything.
Yeah.
You know, that's a
I've
that's a
been through the full spectrum. The first company I worked at, everyone was hired pretty much out of school. And so they had like a really, very defined hiring path and a pretty well regimented, up the chain of growth. But it is interesting today. What I've seen is people expect to seem to expect to get promotions much faster. And I think the term like senior engineer has changed. Like in my mind, a senior engineer is somewhere 5 to 8 years of experience that you can trust to give something and they'll go get it done.
right, right.
Sometimes you meet a senior engineer that's like 2 years out of school that's still, you know,
Mm,
figuring out how to do stuff. Like, I'm not gonna, I'm sorry, like senior engineer, that's you got to be autonomous. Like you got
right,
to be
right.
able to, I got to be able to give you something and you go do it. So, In the world today, these days, it feels like being the grumpy old man. These days, kids, they get all sorts of different titles, and they don't really line up with my expectations of what that should be.
That's funny. Well, that's, the the reason that those companies have a regimen and a structured promotion process is is you can say that, right? You can
Yeah.
say, oh, if you're a senior engineer, I can give you this thing and you can go and do it all by yourself, and you understand all these bits and pieces, and you can just run solo, right? And by the way, this here's the path to get there. You
Yeah.
start at level 1 and then 2 and 3 and 4, and when you're senior, you're level 5, right?
Yeah.
And then when you get to level 7, now you're some level of design meetings, where the product team is consulting with you to figure out, can we pull this off?
Yeah.
Is this possible in the next time window? And if
And we do things like that, but ours is a little more nebulous. Like even more junior people can be involved in those things. So I think there's a little hesitancy to set up so much formal structure. I think
right.
part of it is letting each team and leader recognize, good work without
Mm-hmm.
having to try to describe, oh, here's the 10 things that say you're senior. Like you have to do this, this, and this. I think there's a little more interest in having flexibility in
Yeah.
defining that as opposed to trying to codify it and just like someone like, oh, yep, look, I did all 10 things. I should be promoted.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think there's pros and cons of both directions.
Yeah.
you know um
Yeah, I think the really formalized structure, you need a really good set of people that came up with that, right? You need to
yeah,
really
yeah.
have thought about it and people have to be bought in to it, right?
Right,
Like
right.
this all
And
makes sense and yeah.
yeah, and then you also have to look at it as hypothesis and say, this is what we're going to do for a while. We think this will work well and it will solve this set of problems, and we're going to revisit it in 6 months and get feedback. And if a bunch of people are like, this isn't working because blah blah blah, then change it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
everything is that, right? Yeah, it's like
yeah,
here's the best idea we have right now. Let's see how it goes and then we'll adjust it. But
yeah.
I'm seeing that to also just get bogged down, right? Companies are afraid to commit to something. Like in the past, tried to come up with a matrix of stuff, and like everybody wants their opinion in it. And before you know it, they have 70 steps for everything. And it's like, okay, again,
Right.
analysis paralysis. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
we don't want to do anything unless everyone agrees. It's like, well, you're never going to do anything. That's a great way to do nothing.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's analysis paralysis is definitely a problem, for people that don't want to be criticized. And I think my experience has been that the bigger the company, the more that's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, they have
Um,
more time to think about it, right? They have a large HR team and
yeah.
right. And you're generally probably hiring a wider range of experienced people, maybe more junior. Like we currently don't often do interns or co-ops. Like those are generally larger companies. And then you
Right.
want more structure, right? People coming out of school want to know, how do I move up? Whereas you
Right.
go
Right.
a smaller team and more informal, you can have more personal conversations and have a little more leeway in it. But yeah,
Right.
the bigger
Right.
companies tend to kind of want to put all that into writing and have a more formal structure.
Yeah. Well, I think the bigger companies start to worry more about avoiding getting sued for,
Yeah, I mean, there's a legal element to it as well.
whatever it is. Yeah. Yeah. And they see that, oh, we've got this volume coming in. I'm sure there's a whole set of stats for HR that the
Oh
more
yeah,
people you're hiring, the higher your risk level is. And so they're like, oh, we have to do risk mitigation. So now we're going to structure it.
it would be fascinating to see that data. It seems like a perfect opportunity for LLMs and machine learning of, given this set of companies past hirings, like what is the statistical chance this person is going to be a liability for us?
Yeah. 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 It
I'm
would
sure
be
it's already done. To be honest, there's probably already 50 startups doing that.
yeah. If not, when this podcast drops,
Yeah.
someone's going to hear it and go, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's
That's,
perfect.
That's a great. Well, like oh God, what is it? Not Deloitte. Gartner
Yeah.
does all these surveys for employee engagement that I always find fascinating because the engagement numbers are so horrible, and I'm pretty convinced that most of the time the people that they're surveying are at big companies,
Yeah.
just because if 75% of your team was disengaged, you would never ship because it's so small, right?
Yeah.
um 75% of my people, the last three teams that I've had, were not engaged. Yeah, I would have nothing would have ever gone out the door because it was like we would have been horrible.
Yeah.
um and on the flip side, the handful of big companies I've been at were definitely places where there were people doing an hour of work a day.
Yeah.
And the smaller the company, the 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 less that's an acceptable thing.
Well, yeah, you just can't really get away with it. In a big company, yeah, there's so many little niches to hide in too, right? And there's so
Yeah,
much specialization that someone can have a job that no one really else understands and is necessary, but yeah, it doesn't take that
yeah,
much to do. I'm sure that's a lot of what LLMs and generative AI is going to be replacing is those
yeah,
kinds of roles will have less and less space in an organization.
yeah, yeah. When Elon bought Twitter and then got rid of 80% of the workforce or whatever it was, and everything kept running. You
That
know,
actually is a testament to them having built probably a pretty good, robust system, although it did seem to fall over a little bit more often.
yeah, a little bit, but it's like they didn't disappear.
Yeah.
And everything seems to be running now. And yes, he did say you have to expect a lot of long days if you're going to stick around. But yeah, that it's functional and they're making money and getting a ton of traffic. So I'm like, okay, something's working well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're more efficient, and that again, that's the whole game, is to be efficient.
Yeah. It's always
Yeah,
that was one of the things sort of as a leader, seeing that in companies is always fascinating. The idea of how slim can you get the team basically before something falls over and you need to add people back.
right,
I mean, as a logical thing, that makes perfect sense. As an actual person running a team that goes through that, that sucks. Like,
right,
that's
right.
literally the least fun thing to be through. Is like, how
Yeah,
slim can we get this before it falls over? Okay, let's add back a person or two. It's like that's why it's always good to be in a growth company where that isn't, once you get into maintenance mode or you kind of start hitting steady state. I mean, that is inevitable what you have to do, right? You
right,
want to be
right,
running something that is basically whether profitable or obviously profitable would be important, but not if it's not growing, you're going to be like, okay, what is the absolute minimum number of people we need to do this? And so,
right,
and then you will invariably, if you pick the minimum and you have no bench, when someone falls out, attrition, or someone gets sick, then you're going to start falling behind and you got to
right.
bring them back. But
Yeah,
um, that's never a fun place to be to me. I mean, I think there's other people that may love that, enjoy that, but man, that's not one of my favorite positions.
yeah. That sounds like a very hard. And having said that, I years ago, um, I was at a company that cratered. They had paying customers, so they couldn't just shut stuff off.
They had some
Um,
contracts in place.
they had contracts in place, and they were non-trivial clients. And they ended up keeping one guy from engineering
Oh wow, man, I
on
would not
a
want to be that guy.
he was on a contract. Um, he was on a contract for like 8 years, just servicing whatever it was. And part of the problem was because they run an old they run an old Java architecture.
You know,
He couldn't upgrade it because he would have had to change a bunch of code. And so they kept having to like basically band-aid it together. And he finally quit because he was like, I can't band-aid this anymore. someone else has to like redesign the whole thing from scratch, migrate to a new platform. I don't care what, but I'm done.
Yeah, it is though. I don't think that was as much the case when I first started. I don't know about for you, but like you literally could make software and like it could be in the field for 2 years and not need upgrades. Now with everything interconnected, right? Especially if you're on mobile platforms, it doesn't matter. Like there's a new SDK, there's a new requirement from Android, there's a new requirement from Apple. You're
Right.
integrating with a Facebook SDK that needs to be updated. Oh, you're building on Unity. This version of Unity doesn't support this version of Apple. You need to upgrade your Unity version. Like even if you're trying to do nothing, like your goal, you've got like a cash cow. There isn't like you can't really put it out to pasture. You still need people to sit in there digging in, and ever so often you'll discover you've got
Right.
to upgrade 10 like all those interdependencies. Oh, to get this Facebook SDK, we need this Unity version, we need this and this. And it's like, what should have been like a 10-minute exercise is 3 weeks of upgrading stuff, changing code, and totally regressing the app. And
Yeah.
I don't think that was the case probably 15, 20 years ago in desktop software ever or
Yeah.
servers.
Even the web, like even early web-based stuff, I think the complexity level went up a bunch when we started hooking into other people's APIs,
Yeah.
right? Like because they make a change in the API, some way, shape, or form, you got to do something about it
Yeah.
because one day they're going to deprecate whatever it is you're using, and then they're going to turn it off, and then you're out of luck. And yeah, that whole interdependency thing is
Yeah, we used to call it DLL hell. We did a lot of Windows work, right? And you'd have all these interdependencies. That seems actually completely trivial compared to the dependency hell we've created for ourselves these days.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Like, oh,
yeah.
that'd have been great to have only a problem of having a couple different DLLs wrong.
Right, right. Yeah, sorry. You that was the training grounds,
Yeah.
and now you got this whole new game. So it's do you guys how do you how do you divvy up across your teams with those kinds of integrations?
There's actually usually a few people that more focus on it just because it is kind of a longer running thing. It's probably one of those things that should cycle through more of the team, but there's likely one or two people that have more knowledge of integrating various SDKs and also have a relationship with the vendor to go hunt down problems. So we generally tend to falls on one poor person generally, but it really
Okay,
should be spread around more just because it isn't super specialized knowledge, but invariably every time we upgrade an SDK, it does something wrong at least once in the field, and then we have to go
oh
fix it.
yeah, you want the I've always been paranoid about single points of failure. Like really early in my career, we only had one data center, and we lost our servers there.
Oh man, yeah,
Um,
that'd leave a mark.
yeah, and so it did. I have still have scars from that, and like now everything is redundant, and I'm never having one data center ever again.
Yeah.
Um, and when I went to companies where they only had one, I was like, please, like like there's so much bad with this. Um, but that's yeah, you learn that stuff in the real world,
Yeah.
and now when I talk to people, everybody has multiply geographically disparate redundant data centers, different pipelines running into them, optimally different providers, and but yeah, you don't. Well, okay, so I've been doing this long enough that when I started, cloud wasn't a thing. You had to have your own cage in a data center somewhere.
Yeah, we still do on-prem just because it's so much less cost. And then it's also, we have a pretty well-known amount of traffic. So it's just like we don't have the need for elasticity. So we
Right,
still do a lot of our own stuff. I mean, it does come with the downside of, we have to do our own patching and things like that. On the other hand, the cost is it's very cost efficient. Um,
right,
but it also, yeah, it comes with some other downsides to it. But
right. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting that you're not clouded. That's actually just who was I just I was just talking to somebody who was in the process of doing an analysis um, to figure out when to move off the cloud
Yeah.
because they saw this event horizon where the the rising cost of cloud was going to cross the line of buying their own hardware and having their own
You ever heard of
on-premises
the
thing.
company 37 Signals? They do kind of like a Jira like or a planning. I don't actually know their software very well, but the
Oh,
guy
yeah,
who
yeah,
started
yeah,
but they recently have been moving off the cloud. I think they think they'll save a couple million. I don't remember if it was a couple million a year or 5 million over a few years, but for
yeah,
them it was
yeah,
a pretty big cost savings. And it's just like, yeah, if you're not growing and scaling up, or you have a really well established usage pattern, elasticity doesn't help. And then paying for those services, if you've
yeah,
got a pretty stable platform and you're not moving stuff all around. And certainly it's also great. Like for me, I personally would never really want to be tied to a cloud vendor. Like also I believe in debugging on my machine every time I have to like if every time I play with something where it's like, oh, deploy to a dev environment in the cloud, like that is a long time to wait, frankly. Even if
mm,
it's just like 30 seconds or a minute, it's like I've already lost like I love the systems that are hot reload, things like that. Like I want to be stepping through the code immediately. If I don't have to especially redeploy if it's got a hot reload, and I can just sit there and make the change and then make the request again on the server or the client, that is way better. But deploying to the cloud, even if it's you got a great connection, still feels like if you're building Docker containers and Docker build and then you deploy and then it's like 30 seconds.
so just think through like it's 30 seconds, but it used to be the compile time was 20 minutes, like
Yeah, one of the things I worked on was a huge C++ program. It was, I think, 4 million lines of code. Almost everything was at least a 10-minute link. Like no matter what you did, if you just changed one line, if you changed the header file, you were done for the day. It was like a 45-minute, 2-hour thing. Like, and that's
right,
nothing compared to obviously
right,
worked on stuff like
exactly, yeah,
Windows that's like a 12-hour build. But yeah, it was still like, oh, crud. That's where people would start externing things into the C files and doing all sorts of stuff. Like I never, the goal would be never to change a header file. And so people would do everything they could to change the code in a way that didn't require the whole system to be recompiled.
right, right, yeah. It's amazing how our perspectives have changed. I've got to
Yeah.
wait 30 seconds. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, but when you play with tools like if you play with stuff like React or Ruby on Rails, like you just make the change, hot reloads, you don't do
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
Like it's amazing.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. I years ago was um there's a language called what's it called? Vortex.
Oh, I've never heard of that. Vortex, huh?
It's from this little company called Thunderstone
Yeah.
that has kind of disappeared. Um, and they were like you change the code and it's a interpreted language.
Yeah.
And it's real time. And that was what I started off in.
Oh, wow. That's
And
luxury.
so yeah, it was. And so then I started doing stuff in Java, and that actually has a compile time.
Yeah.
Not very much, but still it has a real compile time, right? And I'd be like, wait a minute, I'm gonna wait like 2 minutes for this. What's going
Yeah.
on? You know, um, and I can't imagine. And that stuff was pretty small. I can't imagine, millions of lines of code and like, I guess I'm done for the day. Because who knows when that's going to be done? That's crazy.
Yeah. You got to meet your coworkers though. Like you're like, okay,
That's
I just
true.
tick off a big compile. I'm gonna go get some coffee and go talk with people or whatever, right?
Yeah, see what they're working on. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, yeah. Oh my God, that's funny. Are you guys you're that's you're working from home, right?
No, we're in the office.
Oh, you are? Okay. How does that work out for you guys?
It's pretty good. I mean, I think that there are a few people that push back on it, but it is nice to be in office. I'm fortunate that I'm pretty close, so it doesn't bother me. But I think it isn't uniformly agreed upon that it's great. But it is nice to be in the rooms with people to get stuff done. I think there's a great benefit to having people together on stuff, especially when the urgency is needed. I
Yeah.
think the one detraction for me is for a lot of the engineers, we still have open space working. And when they need to be heads down, like even I remember as an individual engineer, like, sitting in a room with 20 other people is not great when you need to focus for 3 hours. So,
Oh
and we
yeah,
try to
yeah, yeah.
balance that out with, for most of the individual contributors, it's 3 days in the office a week and two remote. And we try on the 2 days that they work from home to basically try to have no meetings. So they get to have focus
Focus time.
time.
Yeah, yeah.
So we can,
Have you run across Suka?
no.
It's let me. So Suka is specifically designed for engineers to help them focus. Um, let me pull it up. I'll give you a URL. I think this is it. No, what's it called?
This is like a meditation or sound thing
No,
or
no, this is oh God, I should be able to find this. It's they play it's a few things. Number one is trying to help people stay in flow. So it's audio and there's multiple choices of different kinds of audio to help with that. And then also there's a built-in Pomodoro timer. And then they've got their own chat if you happen to want to do that. Oh, hang on. And I know the guy that founded the company and um and I'm gonna search here. Oh, of course, I spelled it wrong. That's why it didn't work.
seemed like autocorrect should have figured that out.
Yeah, they should have, but I very much spelled it wrong.
Really butchered it.
Yeah, yeah. I had the wrong uh, top level domain.
Uh,
No matter what else I did, if when I blew that, I wasn't going to get it. But it's I've used this a bunch. It's the right audio for like focus work, um, and I like having the built-in timer
yeah, sort of
because I don't
wake you up.
but I don't over focus because that's one of the things that I notice with being in flow is that if I stay in too long, I'm losing the focus, and it's better to have the alert to get out. And I
Hmm.
come back in with better energy, with more easily able to focus again.
Oh, kind of need a rest in there a
You
little
need a
bit.
rest. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
I
there's
generally end up going for a walk. Like, the office is too cold, so I'm like, okay, I'm starting
yeah,
to get cold. I'm gonna get up and go for a walk. It's usually how I kind of reset my brain.
yeah, yeah. But I like their setup, and so I'm anybody that wants to help their people focus. I'm like, oh, check out Suzuka.
Yeah, cool. Have
Um,
you been working from home for a while? Is that what made
yeah.
your
So
way of doing?
I've been running. Well, I've been working from home now since COVID.
Yeah.
Um, we had an office and we shut it down. And prior to COVID, the last paycheck company that I was at, we had an office here in Silicon Valley, but it was purely voluntary. Um, the and my team was well, all the teams were distributed, and my team was every U.S. time zone except Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was, like literally we had people in Maine and people in California and people in the middle of the country. We had somebody in Austin. And then one of my guys decided to travel around the world.
Nice
Um,
for him.
for nice, well, he got all his work done. Like that was
Yeah.
the deal was like, as long as you're responsible, get your work done. I really don't care what time zone you're in. And he made every meeting. He was, I think, more productive traveling because he was incentivized to really get stuff done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then get out
Most
and
people that
go.
just cannot stay in their house for like a whole day. Like I just
Yeah,
cannot do that. I have to get out and do something, ride a bike or go play. And especially like going to coffee shops or the office is a nice break from that, right? I after COVID it's like, you know, I don't need to spend that much more time in my house. So
right,
I do like the
right.
opportunity to get out.
Yeah,
Um,
I went for a walk at lunchtime. I was out for like half an hour, 45 minutes, and once this call is done, I'm getting on my bicycle. So
yeah, me too.
yeah, perfect.
It's
Okay.
97 here though, 98. So it's going to be a hot bike ride.
It's better than 110, look on the bright
True.
side.
Yeah, it could be worse. It could be raining.
Could be, and it's a dry heat, right?
Not that dry. Let's see, what are
Not,
we today? I don't know what it is, but it's been pretty humid here.
oh, okay. God, now you got me really curious what the weather's like here. Um, oh, it's only 78.
You're in California, it doesn't count.
Yeah. um,
Everything's nice
and
in that area.
humidity is 52.
It's
So,
only 25 here, so that would explain why.
oh, humidity is only 25. Then yeah, it'll be very dry heat.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, you'll have
Survivable.
fun. Um, Thank you very much for your insights. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great.
This
It's
has
been
been
really
cool.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've enjoyed
yeah,
it very much.
good. Well, um, would you do it again sometime in the future?
Yeah, yeah, it'd
Okay,
be fun.
cool.
I'd like to, yeah, hear more from your side. I know I did a lot of talking. I'd love to hear some of your experience and
Oh, sure.
especially startup stuff. I haven't really done much startup stuff, so that's always interesting to me. And yeah, I'd love to hear more.
I've mostly done startup stuff.
Yeah,
And I like startup or smaller company, because there is a propensity for action.
yeah,
And the two times that I've been at big companies, I left because there was too much friction around action. And um, it's super annoying for me to work on a project for months and be like, right, like we've got outside stakeholders, there's all this moving parts that we've got and all corralled, everybody's lined up. And then some executive at the last minute, we're like a week to 2 weeks from launch, goes, yeah, we're not going to do it right now because I'm nervous. And it's
yeah.
like, wow.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
one where I was working in one division and then, but doing work for another division, like making some platform tools to be shared across them. And the two leaders of those two divisions did not agree on what I was supposed to be working on. And I couldn't even get
Oh,
the
wow.
CEO to agree. And I was like, I don't know how to win at this. Like, I don't like
Right.
the person I'm reporting to doesn't want me to do the thing that the other person wants me to do. And they don't trust that I'm going to work on their behalf. And trying to resolve it got nowhere. And I was just like,
Oof.
this isn't good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Ouch.
story for another time.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy your bike ride.
You too?
And this has been awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Cool. Thank you.
All right.
See ya.